Star Wars The Bad Batch has had its share of twists and surprises, not to mention the cameos and returning characters such as Cad Bane, Cham Syndulla, Hera Syndulla, and Caleb Doom, also known as Kanan Jarrus. But the biggest twist of all comes in the character that the Bad Batch have taken on as one of their own, Omega. As Ahsoka Tano had been introduced as a youth in the Clone Wars as Anakin Skywalker's annoying Padawan, until we got to know her a little better, Omega is now the student of survival, with the members of Clone Force 99 as her mentors. But the twist comes in a different form. Omega is seemingly the clone twin of Boba Fett, another exact replica of Jango Fett, with the minor enhancement making Omega a female. But what is in store for these clone siblings today on Star Wars Fanatic? While you're here, go ahead and subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all my Star Wars content. Now, let's jump right in. The Bad Batch series can be seen as many things, such as the sequel to the Clone Wars animated series, but it can also be seen as the prequel series to Star Wars Rebels. At least that's what it lays on the surface. But what if it is actually a prequel to other things as well, such as the Book of Boba Fett? In many ways, it is pointing to a way of showing Boba Fett as a young teen making his name in the galaxy and giving him a deeper story than that of a ruthless bounty hunter. Sure, the show will be mostly centered around Omega and the Bad Batch, but it is undeniable that Boba Fett will play a part in her story. Maybe even a big part. But what would that entail? Well, let's take a look. We already know Omega is the clone sister of Boba Fett, at least from what we know so far. The Kaminoans would like to get a hold of Boba as a source for their third generation of clones, but he has disappeared from their radar. Now, they are after Omega to start that process, but the Kaminoan, Nala Se, is fighting to keep Omega away from Kamino. Bounty hunters have been hired by both sides. Lama Su, who wants Omega found to clone her and terminate her, and Nala Se, who became almost like a mother figure to Omega and wants to keep her safe, even if it means her way of life becoming either extinct or obsolete. The Prime Minister Lama Su's concern is to keep the Kaminoans relevant as an important supplier to the Imperial Army. If Nala Se has her way, Omega's freedom could spell doom for the Kaminoan race. With the disappearance of Boba Fett, this indicates he has learned how to be a good hunter. In being a good hunter, you have to know how to cover your tracks and not be hunted. The Bad Batch have not mastered that art yet, as evident by Crosshair hot on their trail at all times. This is going to cause problems for them, and it will put Omega in danger. The episode where they tried to get her to go with Cut Lawquane, the clone deserter who started a family, was just a foreshadowing of what's to come. Clone Force 99 and Omega will have to make the decision to either hold on to her or allow Boba Fett to take her with him and keep her hidden, until such a time that Omega can fend for herself or the Bad Batch can rejoin her. Even if Crosshair rejoins the Bad Batch and his inhibitor chip is removed, the Bad Batch are still a bit sloppy. In all seriousness, they were created for open combat, not sneaking around. If you need evidence of this, just look at Wrecker. He's loud and boisterous about his exploits and his abilities. It's hard to stay hidden with someone like him on your team. The biggest issue with this thought is how we have seen Boba Fett so far. He has been a loner. Or has he? We only saw Boba Fett for a total of 6 minutes and 32 seconds in the original trilogy. Yes, that entire time he is alone. But wait, when he is first introduced, he is shown with other bounty hunters in the presence of Darth Vader. Through his arc in the Clone Wars, we see him team up with some of these same bounty hunters. In fact, throughout most all of his appearances in the Clone Wars, he has teamed up with other bounty hunters, after his father was unable to continue his training due to his own untimely death on Geonosis. So, we know Boba Fett has teamed up a lot, but is he ready for a mentor role? And where is Omega in the War of the Bounty Hunters comic series? Well, maybe it's significant to point out that that comic series ends just after the first season of The Bad Batch ends. Maybe we will see something of it then. That would be interesting. Maybe Omega has been tagging along with Boba Fett the entire time, hanging out in the Slave One, Boba Fett's starship, just as he did as a boy with his father. The Bad Batch is roughly 3 to 4 years after the events of Attack of the Clones. This would put Boba Fett around 13 to 14 years old. Is he ready to be a mentor at this time? That seems young to us, but in Mandalorian culture, that is the age of becoming an adult. I have heard others speculate that Omega is the same age as Boba, but that can't be. She is the Omega clone, where Boba Fett is the Alpha clone. Boba created first, and Omega created last, if we go by the Greek alphabet. And if you look at her appearance, she is between 10 to 12 years old. So another question arises. Is Boba Fett ready to take on a student of his own at this age? Well, that depends on how you view Boba Fett's code. If he was trained in the Rezulnare by his father, then family is a big tenet of being a Mandalorian. Omega, being his sister, is family, even if cloned. After all, he called Jango Fett his father, and Jango raised him as his own son. Now, that's not excluding what the other clones are to him, but they are all faceless to him, and there are so many of them. Omega is a different kind of clone. I do think Boba will be hesitant at first, but he will come around, just as Anakin was hesitant to take on Ahsoka as a Padawan, but learn to appreciate her. Anakin was barely a Jedi. By that, I mean he was barely out of his Padawan stage, where Boba is just coming into his own as a bounty hunter. The similarities would be uncanny if this happens. But this isn't about the similarities between Anakin and Boba Fett, because that's pretty much where they stop. Anakin was a pupil, then a mentor. Boba was a pupil, then may become a mentor. But I think this story will be more about carrying on the Fett name than anything. As I said in another video, most of the newer Star Wars series and stories seem to be revolving around a Boba Fett story. Like what, you ask? Well, the War of the Bounty Hunter comic series for one. Yes, we know that series is about Boba Fett and his hunt to get back the frozen Han Solo. But the main Star Wars comic, Dr. Aphra, Darth Vader, and Bounty Hunters is all gearing towards finding Boba Fett and Han Solo. Now, what if the Bad Batch is creeping along up to that as well, and it's not really about Boba Fett, but also Boba Fett and his relationship with Omega, culminating in the end. Then there's The Mandalorian. Yes, Boba Fett was more of a side character, but his return was significant. Significant enough that it was Boba Fett returning and not some other random Mandalorian like Fenn Rau or Rook Kast. Significant enough that Boba Fett is also getting his own limited series spinoff that will tie into the other parts of newer series such as Ahsoka and Rangers of the New Republic, if that series actually happens. And I wouldn't be surprised if Boba Fett shows up in Andor and the Kenobi series. Not to mention, the Bad Batch has already made mention of him a few times, and his partner in The Mandalorian, Fennec Shand, has already made 2 appearances, and his former nemesis, Cad Bane, has been in a couple episodes. And may I add that Cad Bane also had a metal plate in his head where Boba Fett shot him in the unfinished duel scene between the two in the Clone Wars series. So let's put the pieces together. It looks like Omega is a new character, one they're going to want to tie into other things, not just end her in this Bad Batch arc, but rather carry her on throughout. And since she is a sister of Boba Fett, it only makes sense to team her up with Boba Fett and carry on her arc that way, maybe even carrying on past Boba Fett. Look, we all know I'm a huge Boba Fett fan, but there is too much pointing to him being involved with Omega in a big way, or they wouldn't have wrote her as his clone sister. Making her different makes her stand out from the other clones, as they were all male. Boba may see her as different than the other clones. It may be a more natural, familial bond. But I think it would be interesting to see that Omega was actually part of the older Boba Fett stories, and we just didn't see her. Yeah, it would take some creative work, and it may change the way we see the original trilogy, but it is a good way to fit her into this story and continue the Fett bloodline, all while bringing Clone Force 99 into the Mandalorian culture as Clan Skirata. But that's for another story and another video. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all my Star Wars content. Also, hit the thumbs up to show your love for what I do and help boost the channel one like at a time. And let me know in the comments below what you think. Do you think that Omega could be combining with Boba Fett? And thank you for watching. Remember, this is the way, the only way.